Okay, big breaking news from the second Democratic debate that was held in the middle of last week. And the big breaking news is basically the debate has had no impact whatsoever on polling. Okay, barely anything has moved. We now have two post debate polls, and I'll show you the data in a second. Just as a reminder, my analysis of the second Democratic debate was that in night one, it was the Bernie Warren progressive duo that really won the night. Either of them could be said to have won. I think they both did well. Some people in my audience saying it was Bernie who did better than Warren. Some saying the opposite, it was Warren who did better than Bernie. Otherwise, the performances were so poor that I actually had Marianne Williamson in third place in night one of the debate. Night two, I believe Andrew Yang stood out. And then I believe that actually Joe Biden did well, not because he said anything particularly great, but because he just weathered constant attacks from all of the other candidates. Other candidates coming in, or most of them anyway, clearly with the agenda of going after Biden. It made Biden, particularly as some of those attacks fell flat, it made Biden sort of seem like the calm, rational guy. His politics are to my right. I disagree with him on much policy, but I did think that he came away solid in that debate. We now have polling from after this second debate, and we will put up on the screen for you the polling before debate one, the polling before debate two, and now the post-debate two polling, which are numbers based on two post-debate polls, one from Harvard Harris, one from Politico Morning Consult averaged. And what you will notice, the changes are Biden up slightly, Bernie up the most, Warren down, interestingly, Kamala Harris slightly down, everybody else basically unchanged. The zeros and ones still at 0 and 1. No real movement for Andrew Yang, technically actually down a bit, all still within the margin of error. So continuing to see absolutely no real effect for the zeros and ones from participating in these debates. Many of them are not going to make it to the third debate on September 12th. And my expectation is that at least some of them are going to end their campaigns once they can't participate in the debates. It is difficult to really justify continuing in the race unless they think, well, I could keep raising money one way or the other. So what's important to understand now is that historically at this point, most often the leaders in primary polling become the nominees, but not always. Okay, it could change this year, but historically, recently, that's the way it's been. Let's take a look at that. You will remember that. So what we're looking at, this is a November 2020 election, and we're in August of 2019. So we want to look at the equivalent time about 13, 14 months before prior elections. In 2016, Donald Trump was leading the Republican primary in August of 2015. And he ultimately was the nominee. Hillary Clinton was leading the Democratic primary in August of 2015, and she ultimately became the nominee. In 2012, Mitt Romney was ahead at this point in that Republican primary. He ultimately was also the nominee. Now, some counterpoints are that in 2008, you had Hillary Clinton winning primary polling at this point in the primary, and she ultimately lost, of course, to Barack Obama. And Rudy Giuliani was also leading the Republican primary in 2008 and ultimately lost to John McCain. So I'm not necessarily the bearer of good or bad news here. What I'm communicating is that recently, typically, the leaders in the primary polling right now end up being the nominees. But we have some examples from the last, it was 11 years ago, but still 12 years ago at this point. Sometimes they don't. What I think is abundantly clear is that there is not a path that I see for anyone other than Biden, Bernie, Warren, maybe Harris, possibly Pete Buttigieg if he can turn it around. But I don't think anyone below Buttigieg right now has any shot at being the nominee. If you disagree with me, if you see a way that someone below the Buttigieg level right now could become the Democratic nominee, I want to hear from you. And don't just say, well, the polling could turn around and they could take the lead, because historically that doesn't happen with people polling, under 5% at this point in time. But tell me exactly what it is that's going to happen, particularly if they don't even make it to the debates that are in just 5 weeks. I want to hear from you. Let me know, maybe via Twitter @DPakman.